This is Megan.
And I'm Savannah.
And today you're joining us at Butler Creek in Phinizy Swamp. And we're going to be talking all about water quality. So water sustains our bodies, but not just us, right? You can hear all the birds around us and see all the green plants, and water sustains those too. So one of the important ways that we can look at water quality is by observation. And that we would do by a form of a habitat assessment. So here at Phinizy Swamp, we use Adopt a Stream to monitor our creeks. And Adopt a Stream is a citizen science program. And so Savannah's got one of those sheets. This is our modified version of our habitat assessment. So here you can see our habitat assessment data sheet, and you can see that we have 7 questions. So we're going to go through all of these together today, looking at Butler Creek right next to us. So question 1 says, rocky bottom stream or muddy or sandy bottom stream? So let's have a look at Butler Creek and see what we think. If you look over here, you can see that we can actually see some of the sand on the bottom, and there aren't any rocks sticking out. So I agree. Let's check that.
We'll check
muddy, sandy bottom stream. So let's think about it quick. Where would we usually find a rocky bottom stream? Probably in a mountain, right? So now we're starting with question 2. So question 2 says, what is the water clarity? Check all that apply. So water clarity is, we're going to be talking about how clear the water is, how easily you can see straight through it. Savannah, what's option 1?
Option 1 is turbid.
Turbid, great. So turbidity is a word that you may or may not know. It's kind of a more scientific term that we talk about having suspended matter or solids in the water. So for instance, let's say we go to the beach and there's been a storm and the waves have rolled up a whole bunch of sand and it's all hanging in the water. And can we see through it? Not really, right? It's not very clear. So that would be turbidity. It's very turbid is when we can't see through it very much. So let's have a look. We have a sample of our creek water here. We got this a few hours ago. Do you see a lot of suspended dirt hanging in the water there?
I do not.
Yeah, you're right. So we collected this a couple of hours ago, and as you can see just down in the bottom there's a little bit of sand that has settled out. So we definitely don't have turbid water. All right, option 2.
Option 2 is tannic.
Tannic, yay! So we have tannic water. Let's talk about tannic. So tannic is when you have water that is stained. What are all of these things that we have here?
Do you see broken down leaves?
Yeah, do you see all these different kinds of leaves? And let's think about tea. Tea is made from leaves, right? So when we put tea leaves in a mug and we put some water with it, we brew it out, and out comes the flavor, but also the color. So here we have leaf water, but just without the flavor. So these leaves have fallen into the creek and they turn it a color like you can see here. So we can definitely check that option.
I will check off tannic.
Yes. Whoa, there's some fish behind us or something jumping over there. What is option 3?
The third one is no staining or no suspended matter.
Okay, well, let's look. We definitely said that we have staining, right? So that one is
so
not, we don't check that one. All right, what is option 4?
Option 4 is blue-green algae.
Oh, well, let's have a look. Nothing on the surface. Blue-green, you don't see anything either? Blue-green algae is actually not a very good thing to have. During the summer last year, there were some algal blooms, and they're actually very toxic. There were quite a few dogs that died from drinking up blue-green algae. So we're super glad that we do not have blue-green algae in our creek right now. What is the next option?
Okay, so our next and last option is other, such as dyes and chemicals.
All right, so we're gonna have to tell you because you can't smell it, but do you smell any chemicals here?
It smells pretty clean.
Yeah, I don't think there's chemicals here. We don't have chemicals in our creek, and you also didn't see anything flowing down like pink or purple, any dyes. We don't have any of that. So the only one we'll have checked here would be tannic. Yes. All right. What is question 3?
Number 3 is about the water odor.
Ooh. So we're going to get Savannah should have a sniff for us and tell us what it smells like. So let me read you your options while you do that. Natural or none is your first option. Gasoline, and then rotten egg. Then we have sewage, chlorine, chemicals, or other.
I'm gonna have to go with option 1 because this water didn't really have any smell to it.
We're very grateful for that because, let me pass this back to you. This creek that we have right here, Butler Creek, is actually an urban creek. And urban is where you have a lot of population, right? So a city. Butler Creek runs through a suburb called Grovetown. And there's a big interstate that runs right next to Grovetown. So we have a lot of trucks and a lot of cars that drive past. When it rains and there's a lot of rain that falls on concrete, can it absorb all the way through? No. So it has to run off, right? It runs. We've picked up some of that gasoline and we could run into the creek. So for this not to smell like gasoline is really great. All right, so the only option that we checked for water odor was
natural or no smell.
Yes, perfect. All right, let's have a look at question 4, which says water surface. All right, what are our options?
So our first option is clear. Then we also have foamy, natural, oily sheen, or other. So we have 5 different options.
So we have 5 different options. Let's have a look at Butler Creek together, everybody. So if we had an oily sheen on top, I'm sure you would see it, right?
Yes.
And do we have any foam running down?
I do not see any foam.
No, we can pretty much see right through, can't we? So I would say this is a clear creek, right? You have a clear creek.
That's what I would say.
And as we said earlier, thank goodness for no petroleum products or any oil running down.
I'd say the water surface is clear, so we have that one checked off for number 4.
Perfect. Number 5.
Number 5 is stream shade cover. So how well is the water surface shaded by vegetation?
All right, so let's have a look at the forest around us. Do you see how many trees we have? And they're pretty tall trees, and right now they all have their leaves. So we have quite a lot of tall vegetation around us right now. And then let's think about, this is just past the peak of the day. So if we have a look at this creek, we're going to see, this is generally like when the most sun is going to be on this creek. But remember, we're not just looking at this little patch. Because if we were looking at this little patch, that wouldn't really tell us about the whole creek. So let's have a look at the whole creek. Now that we've had a look at the whole creek, we need to rate this creek. So the way we've done our scale is 10 is total shade and 0 is total sun. So what would you rate our creek as?
I would probably rate it about an 8. I feel like there's a pretty good amount of shade along the creek here.
Yeah, that sounds good. Even in the very peak of the day, there is quite a lot of shade on this creek because of all our tall vegetation. And shade is very important to our creek because shade keeps us cool, right? And we don't want to be too hot. And nor does the creek, because as your temperature goes up, oxygen goes down. So if we had super high temperature, we would have super low oxygen, and nothing that breathes from gills would be able to breathe if we had low oxygen and high temperature. So we definitely don't want that. So shade is super important. Right, let's take a look at question 6.
So 6 is, what is the presence of naturally occurring organic matter in the stream?
So organic matter would be matter that would be able to break down. So things like leaves, things like fallen trees, anything that might have fallen into the creek that comes from the creek banks around here and can degrade or biodegrade in this creek. So we have a scale again, 10 to 0. 10 is abundant organic matter and 0 is none at all. So let's take a look. What do you think? What would you rate our creek?
I would probably rate it about an 8 again. I feel like there's a pretty good amount of logs that we see out there.
Yeah, there's a log right here in the shade.
Yeah.
There's also one there. There's one right here. Yeah, and there's even some roots or something sticking out over there. I think that's a pretty good rating. Great, let's put that down. Organic matter is really important because if you're a tiny little fish, do you want to live out in the open where anything can just grab you and eat you? Probably not. You really need a place to hide, you need a place to live, you need a place to lay your eggs, so that's really important to our creek. All right, question 7.
Number 7 is, are the stream banks covered with a variety of vegetation?
Ooh, good. So let's have a look at our stream bank. So this is the one right across the creek from us. And do you see we have many shrubs, we have some vegetation in the water, we also have some very tall trees, we have some medium-sized trees and bushes. We have all of those different types of vegetation. So that's very important for our creek. One of the things that we really try to stop on the edges of creeks is going to be erosion, right? We really need the roots of the vegetation to hold our banks together. So can you please tell us what you would rate our creek?
I would probably rate it a 9.
Oh, a 9.
Okay.
So we have a good variety of vegetation. Another reason a variety of vegetation is important is because remember we spoke about that runoff? Over here we have a variety of vegetation and we have leaves and things on the ground, and as the rain comes down it gets caught in the leaves, it gets caught in everything, and it softly falls to the ground. And a lot of it is able to absorb into the ground and become part of the groundwater, which is important. And not a lot of it is going to run off. In a place like the forest here, about 10% of the rain that falls here is going to run off. And actually about 90% is going to run off in a town or a city. The reason this vegetation is less important is that it actually catches that runoff. And so we don't have a whole bunch of it flowing into our creeks. Because what we can get is flash floods. What would happen is it would just pull all our organic material out and flash flood it down the creek. So another important thing is buffer zones. And so Georgia law around bodies of water is that you cannot build within 25 feet of the creek. Now 25 feet is not very far. So if I built a Walmart right next to this beautiful creek over here, but I kept my 25-foot rule, right? I wouldn't have all that much vegetation to help catch all the bad things that are going to want to run from my Walmart into the creek. But if I had a much further buffer zone, so scientists think 100 feet would be more acceptable, that vegetation would be able to help filter out any bad things that were going to run through into this creek. So buffer zones are very important, and we need to remember to try and leave some buffer zones and some variety of vegetation around all our bodies of water to keep them healthy and keep their water quality up. Let's have a look at what we actually have decided for our water quality.
So I have added up our numbers here. So we get a total of 25 here. And looking at the bottom here, 25 is going to give us an excellent rating.
Perfect. So we have quite a good quality creek that we can see from our habitat assessment that Miss Savannah just did. So make sure you remember that there's different ways that we can look at our water quality, and this is just one of them. This is actually the easiest one that you can do at home. You can take all our questions and go and have a look at your creek that's in your backyard or a body of water near you and see what you think. Well, thank you for tuning in with us and having a look at all the different things that we look at in a habitat assessment.
Thanks, guys.